Hey, thank you so much for joining us tonight with Saturday Night Light. I just hope that you and your family, your friends, your loved ones are safe as you guys walk through this pandemic. We really are hoping that you're able to connect with what we're doing every night, Monday through Friday at 7 p.m. We're sharing a devotional. I hope you have an opportunity to connect to that. And then we really hope that these things on Saturday nights are encouraging to you, that you're able to connect to them, that they're useful in your life. And no matter where you are, no matter what's going on, if you need anything, please feel free to reach out to us. You can comment, you can email, contact us any way possible. We want to be here for you during this time. I think that in life, we all want to be effective, right? We all want to have a meaningful life. We all want to make sure that we're really making the most of the time, the resources, the talents, the gifts, all the things that we have in our life. We want to make sure that we're doing the best job possible. I think we all face that. For me, I know in my life I do. I know that just based on my personality, my desires in life, is I want to be the best father, the best worker, the best person that I possibly can be. And I think that you're probably the same way. You want to be the best friend, and you want to be the best worker or boss, or whatever you have going on in your life, you want to do it well. I've said it before because I really believe it. Nobody wakes up thinking, man, I can't wait to fail today. Man, I can't wait to do a poor job. I don't think that's the way we view life. But I think for all of us, we have these key questions. We have these key desires. We have these kind of key motivators in our life that if we can get clarity on them, if we can really unpack our lives, and if we can really begin to understand the real important stuff, if we can really begin to understand the real catalyst to an amazing life for you and for me, those things can be transformational inside of our lives. But we got to spend the time to do it. And so today we're going to talk about one of those key things. We're going to talk about one of those key transformational pieces of life that if we can grasp it, if we can hold on to it, if we can apply it, it can really change our lives. A couple months ago, my wife and I took a road trip together. We put all of our kids inside of our SUV. We packed it all with all of our clothes and gear and food, and we drove down to Florida. It's like a 16-hour drive, and we were going for a Christmas vacation to visit my brother's family. And that by itself was just a major task. You take 3 young kids under 5, you strap everybody in, you load the car up, and you're driving. Well, on top of that, my son was sick, and we were both already tired, and we set out to kind of make that trip happen. Along the way, my wife and I kind of change off who drives when, and my younger sister was with us as well. And when you're driving down 95 and you get to Jacksonville in Florida, there are these on-ramps, and they're going in all different types of directions, and you got to make sure to choose the right one. Now, lucky for me, I've made this road trip a bunch of times, and so I know which road to choose. I know which path to stay on. I know how the road veers left or the road veers right, and so I can kind of navigate it through. And this last year, when I was making that road trip with my family, I remembered my brother one time when he was driving down to Florida from Maryland. He didn't know what to do. And when he got to that junction, he made the wrong turn. Everybody else was asleep in the car. He didn't know he made the wrong turn. And then 3-4 hours later, everybody wakes up in the car and they're like, what are we doing? Where are we at? They were 4 hours out of the way of where they were supposed to be going because of one wrong turn. That is frustration. That is so frustrating. If you've ever taken a long road trip, if you ever packed everything in and you're so excited to get to your destination, but then you make a wrong turn or you get the directions wrong, that's frustrating. You can just feel like I just wasted so much time, and you got to turn around and you go back. Or I can think about times also, I'm doing my master's right now. My wife is doing her master's as well. And, you start a project, you think, okay, I've read the rubric, I understand what I'm supposed to do, and you get into the project, and then sure enough, a couple weeks in, and the professor or the person in charge of the project says, oh, here's the next part that you're going to have to do, or I just want to clarify this one component because people are having a difficult time. And suddenly you realize, after putting all of this time and all this effort into this project, you realize, oh my gosh, I've done this thing totally wrong, and you have to start over. Like, oh, it's such a frustrating feeling. Or maybe at work, you could be working in whatever field that you're in, and you get assigned a project from your boss, and maybe you're with another team, or maybe you're by yourself, and you start working on that project, and you're spending weeks and time and hours working through something, and then one day your boss comes in and says, hey, we're going to change this project, we're going to change these components of the project, we're going to adjust it a little bit, and then they leave and they keep going what you're doing, and you're left in your office thinking, oh my goodness, like I've just spent hours and hours and hours working on this thing, and it's all out the window now. Those are points of frustration. Those are points of difficulty, and each one of those situations really points to effectiveness, right? I mean, you just feel ineffective in those moments. Whether you're driving a long distance, you make a wrong turn, and now you have to turn around, and you just wasted all that time. Whether you've done a project with school, and you think you're doing the right project, you think you're doing the right work, and then come a couple days or hours later, and you realize, oh my goodness, everything I've done, it no longer works. Or in work, when you've spent time on a project, and then suddenly something changes, and it all has to be adjusted. Whatever the situation is, being effective with our time and our life is really important. And being able to judge that well is really important as well. How do we know that the time that we're spending is effective? Like, take the projects in your work that you've had to change. And because of outside circumstances, whether it's resources or a boss. If you would have known the changes that were going to happen when you started the project, it would have completely adjusted everything that you were going to do. If my brother knew the right direction to go before he made the wrong turn, that's going to adjust what he's going to do. But life's not that way. We don't always have control over those circumstances. And so we're kind of left with figuring out, like, okay, given the fact that I don't have control over everything that's going to happen in my life, given the fact that I don't have control over what other people are going to do or not going to do, how do I be effective? And then how do I know that I know at the end of the day that I've done everything that I can do? Like, how do I know that? And how do I judge that? And I think that's a pressure that we all face in our life. And I think we all have kind of, there's only two options that really exist when we look at that, right? I mean, we have this tension of wanting to be as effective as we possibly can. We have this desire to feel meaningful and to feel that the time that we're spending in our life is meaningful. But we can live with this tension of, okay, what if I get it wrong? What if I don't get it right? What if I miss something? What if I make the wrong decisions? And how do I live with that? How do I live with the stress and the tension of, what if I get it wrong? What if it's not all the way I thought it was going to be? I think that's the tension that people live with in their life. They want to do well, they want to succeed, they want to make the right decisions, but they also live with that tension of the what if, and the what if can create fear and anxiety inside of their life because they don't want to get something wrong. And that leaves us in a position, that leaves us in a place where we have to say, okay, well then, do I just give up? Do I not try at all because I don't have the answers? Like, what am I supposed to do? And I think a lot of people get stuck right in that moment. It's kind of like quicksand for them when they come across that type of question. Again, wanting to be effective but realizing they don't have total control, it creates fear and anxiety. And I think that fear and anxiety is kind of like quicksand in people's lives. And they get stuck and they don't want to move. Their heart is really to be effective. Their heart is really to have healthy relationships or to do the right thing, but they get stuck because of fear and anxiety. And Jesus actually talks about that a little bit. He brings this up in the Bible in a parable. And for some of you, you guys might know this as the parable of the talents. Maybe you don't know what the parable of the talents is, but it's this teaching, it's this series of teaching that Jesus gives to his followers about living an effective life. And the parable goes like this. The parable starts out with Jesus starts communicating that there is this business owner, and this business owner was going to go away for a long time. And so he called together his employees, he called together the people who worked for him, and he gave them all, some resources to use while he was gone. And Jesus says, and he gave them all resources according to their gifts and according to the talents that each one of them had. And he gave some, 5 of these resources, or maybe like $500. He gave one of them $500. And he gave another employee $300. And he gave another employee $100. And Jesus calls them talents, right? He gave one 5 talents. He gave another a few talents, and he gave her another 1 talent. And he went away, and he went away for some time. Now the person with 5 talents goes out and trades and does business and gets 5 more. So he goes out with his $500, and he goes and gets another $500, and now he has $1,000. And the other one goes out with his few talents, and he takes it, and he turns it into $600, turns it into $400. And the one that was given $100, the one that was given 1 talent, he goes and he digs a hole, essentially, and he puts the money in a hole and doesn't do anything with it because he's thinking to himself, I don't know what to do. I want to be a good employee. I want to be a good servant, but I don't really know what to do with it, and so I'm going to protect it. I'm going to do everything I can to protect it, and so I think maybe just put it in a hole, and I'm going to keep it there. So the story goes on. Jesus continues to tell the story. He says, look, the business owner, the master, comes back. And when he comes back, he wants to settle his accounts because he left money with all of his employees. So he first goes to the first employee. He says, hey, I gave you 5 talents, and I gave you $500. And what did you do with it? And the employee says, hey, I was able to take that 5 and I was able to create 5 more. So I have 10 talents or $1,000. And Jesus says, the business owner says, hey, good job. My faithful servant. I love you. I appreciate you. Thank you so much for what you did. The business owner goes to the next one. And he says, hey, what did you do? And that goes, hey, I was able to take it and I was able to double it as well. So now I have, if I had 3 talents, I was able to take those 3 and make 6. Or if I had $300, I was able to take those $300 and I was able to make $600. And the business owner goes, good job. You did awesome. I appreciate you so much. And he comes to his final servant. He comes to the final guy. And the final guy, says, hey, how did you do? And the guy goes, I took your money because I knew you wouldn't want to lose it, and I knew you wouldn't want me to lose it, and so I took it and I buried it. And so here's your money back. And the business owner's like, you got to be kidding me. You could have just put it in a bank. You could have just gone and to a bank and you could have given them the money and it wouldn't have earned interest. It would have done something, but you just dug a hole. And the business owner kicks him out, essentially fires the guy and says, get out of here. I don't have any time for you. You didn't do anything with what you've been given. And so Jesus tells that parable, and he uses it to illustrate the fact that in life, the key, the effective thing, the thing that can be transformational for you and for me in our life is that we do the best with what we've been given. That we do the best with what we've been given. That we don't live in fear about what other people have been given and what they're doing with it and think that's how we're going to get judged. And this is why I think people get stuck in quicksand. Because the fear and the anxiety that they're dealing with is they're looking at what everybody else has around them. They're looking, I don't match up to this person. I don't match up to this situation. Oh, because I have all these difficulties. I have all these problems. And they start looking at all those things that are going on in life. And instead of keeping their focus on what they've been given and how they can use it, they start looking at what everybody else has been given and how they are using it. And it freezes them. And it gets them stuck. And that fear and that anxiety overwhelms them. And then what do? They go and they dig a hole and they sit in it out of fear of failure, out of fear of getting it wrong, out of fear of being judged by what everybody else is doing. And Jesus speaks to you and to I about that. And he goes, look, the key to living an effective life is not living in fear that I'm going to judge you as a business owner on if I gave you, I'm not going to judge you the same way I'm judging this guy. I gave you what you have according to what I gave you, not according to this guy. I gave this guy 5, I gave this guy 3, and I gave you 1. I want you to do the best job with your 1. I want you to do the best job with your 3. I want you to do the best job with your 5. I'm not judging you based on the 5 guy. I'm not judging you based on the 3 guy. I'm judging you based on what I gave you, no matter what it is. And so it can sound simple, because it is simple. It's not complicated. It's not complicated. The key to an effective life, the key to a joy-filled life, is to not live in fear of what you don't have and as if you're going to get judged by the standards and what everybody else has. The key to an effective life is understanding that God looks at you for how he made you and for what he gave you. And that's the freedom that you can live with, and that's the freedom that I can live with, is when we we take our eyes off of everything else that's going on around us in life. We take our eyes off of all the things that we don't have and that we can't do. And we get really, really clear about what we do have and what we can do with it. Because God, again, he wants to say, good job, my good and faithful servant. He wants to say that. And he shows us that in that parable, that God is looking to say that to people. And if you want that said to you, I want that said to me. And if that's true, if we want that said to us from God, then we have to think, okay, what has he given me? What has he put in my life? First and foremost, what do I have? Not what do I not have, not even what do I want. What do I have? We ask that question first. And then after we ask the question, okay, like what do I have in my life? And then we go, okay, well, like how am I using what I currently have in my life? And then after we learn how to do those first two things, the next promise that we get from God is that he's going to add to it. But God adds to our lives to the extent that we learn to be effective with what we have. In business, we understand that whole dynamic by margin. And what do I mean by margin? Well, okay, in business, margin is this whole concept where you judge your effectiveness in business by understanding the difference between the profits that you make on something and how much, like your net profits versus like how much your total gross profit was. And your margin in business is around understanding the difference and that amount of money that is left over. So what am I talking about? Well, if I was a business owner and I went out and I purchased something for, let's say, $200. Okay, I purchased this product. It cost me $200 to totally get everything ready to go. I have to decide how much I'm going to sell that thing for. Now, if I go and I sell that thing for $300, my margin is going to be the difference between $300 and $200. It's going to be $100. I have a $100 profit margin on what I did. And really, that margin is judging my overall effectiveness in purchasing or making that product and then selling it, and what am I left over with? And that's really what margin always is. And margin is this idea of how effective of a business are you running. And that's when people talk about margin in the business world. And that really reflects, I think, on our personal lives. We can ask ourselves the question, how effective am I being with what I have? And I'm going to ask that question first. And what God says is I'm going to increase your margin because I'm God. I'm going to increase your margin as you become more effective, more and more effective with what I've given you and what you have in your life. I am going to continue to increase your ability to be effective with what I give you. And man, that's awesome for me because I'm not left with one with God, right? But it starts with one. I start with one talent, but I'm not left with one talent. Because he makes a promise to me. He says, as you are effective with that one, Kirk, I'm going to keep on adding to. And as you are continually effective with what's in front of you, I'm going to keep on adding to. Oh man, that's awesome. That gives me somewhere to go in my life. But it's also encouraging to me because I can feel comfortable with where I am today. That God's not judging me on other people's situations. He's looking at me in where I am today. Oh, that's awesome. It's so encouraging. I can know that I'm secure with where I am today, and I know that I have a future secure, that as I do the things that God asked me to do, there's a future for me in it. I love that, and I love that about God. Listen, I hope that this encourages you. I hope that you are able to connect to this. We care about you so much, and we just can't wait till we're back live, connected with you in person. And if you need anything from us, please feel free to comment. And we just hope and pray that you are safe, that you and your family are secure, and we hope that God blesses you and watches over you.